Today we're going to take a look at section 13.1, which is the time value of money. And the first thing we're going to start with is the idea of simple interest. Simple interest is the formula I equals PRT. I is my interest amount, the amount I make in interest. P is the principal. Principal is the amount of money I put into an account. R is the interest rate. So for instance, if it were 3% interest rate, we would be looking at taking that number 3%, turning it into a decimal for the value of R, which would be 0.03. And T equals the time in years, and that is an important concept to keep in mind. So if we're dealing with something that talks about a certain number of months, we need to turn that into years to work with our formula. Right along with that idea of the simple interest is the future value for the simple interest sort of context. So if you have an amount you put in the money in the bank, or credit union or wherever, that's your principal. And then you would multiply that by 1 plus RT. If you distribute that P across the parentheses, you'll see that we have, in fact, this other equation over here. And it just depends on the context as to which one sort of makes the most sense to use. I'm going to show the next problem to you, but when I do, we're going to actually do it both ways so you can see how that would work. So let's take a look. We have Paul, and he is owed $530 by the IRS for overpayment of last year's taxes. It tells us the IRS will repay his amount that he's owed at 4% simple interest. And we're going to find the amount of interest the IRS owes Paul. So this is my interest formula. I equals P RT. My P, my principal, is the amount of money that I'm, in this case, owed, $530. The interest rate relates to that 4%, which is 0.04. And it says it was last year's taxes, which would be a year ago, T equals to 1. And if we simplify this, we get $21.20. Now this one's actually really nice, but if the decimal had worked out so that you had a third or fourth decimal after this or whatnot, you will round to 2 decimal places because we are talking about money here. Now Part B asks us to find the total amount the IRS owes Paul. So because I've already found the interest, the second formula that said A equals P plus P R T is actually the most convenient to use, because in reality it says that I'm going to add the principal, that is the original amount, plus the interest. And the principal, again, was $530, and then the interest from Part A was $21.20. So we get that the total amount that they owe Paul is $550. And $51, get that number in there right. Sorry about that, $51.20. Now, that's not the only way to do the problem, though. If we had not found Part A, that is to say, if we didn't actually know the interest rate going into this Part B of this problem, the other formula would be a little bit more helpful to use, simply because it does the information in a bit quicker step. I would take A equals P times 1 plus RT. My P is my principal, is 530. And I would multiply that by 1 plus, my R value is 0.04, and time is 1. And of course, we'd better, and in fact we do, get the same value, 551.20. I don't care which one of these two processes you use, they are identical. They just have to do with whether or not we multiply or add first, basically. So either way, you're going to get the correct answer, and you can think about it from either perspective. Simple interest isn't the only kind of interest there is. In fact, there's another called compound interest. This is interest that compounds with regularity, for instance, annually, which would be once a year, or semi-annually, twice a year, quarterly, 4 times a year, monthly, 12 times a year, weekly, 52 times a year, daily, 365 times a year, etc. And the future value formula for compound interest is A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. There's 2 conditions down here below. It tells us what N is. N is the number of compoundings per year. That's what we were talking about up in this other portion of this description. Annually, semi-annually, how many times a year do we do this interest rate? And then all the other letters, the A, the P, the R, the T, all of that is exactly the way it was back when we talked about simple interest. All right, so we're going to do one more example. Find the amount or future value and interest earned for the following. We have a $7,500 principal, an interest rate that's 3.5%. It's compounded semi-annually, and it says it's going to do that for 25 years. So notice we only had one formula here, whereas with simple interest we had a couple things going on. So we actually have my formula A equals the principal, 7,500, times 1 plus the interest rate. So this is 3.5 or 3.5%. Change to a decimal is 0.035. We divide that by n. N comes from the semi-annually statement, which again we said before means twice a year. And then I raise that to the 2 times 25. My suggestion is to multiply 2 times 25. You get 50 and deal with it as a 50. Otherwise, you need to be extremely careful in your calculator that you don't overuse or underuse or misuse or whatever your parentheses. If you worked this simplified out, you would get that we had 17,855.92 cents. And this value right here is what goes in my principal amount spot. So let me just kind of put this as A in here, and here's my A that I just found. Now the interest, which I'll designate that as I, the interest is found sort of in the backwards way than we did the last problem. The last problem we found the interest, then we found the amount. Here we found the amount and we found the interest, but they're related in very much the same way. So we're going to take the amount, 17,855.92, and we're going to subtract off the original principal investment, which was 7,500. And if we simplify this, we actually end up getting 10,355.92. So we have our original $7,000 and we have an additional 10.4 almost $1,000.